From the Podcast Detroit studios and Zoom everywhere else, The Making of Champions. Professional boxers inspiring amateur athletes to become champions. Presented by Joe Louis, champion of them all bourbon, in association with USA Boxing, Golden Gloves of America, and BigFightWeekend.com. Join your hosts, Tonya Cole and Marquis Johns, with special guests from around the world of amateur and pro boxing, celebrating the legacy of Joe Louis, whose status as the first African-American national hero showed the importance of being a leader and a role model inside and outside of the ring.
So here we are, The Making of Champions. This is a podcast video series that has evolved out of the need to really create awareness for what it takes to be a champion, all these amateur and pro athletes. And it's sponsored by Joe Louis Bourbon, because Joe Louis Bourbon, released in 2020, is all about respecting the legacy and honoring the legacy of Joe Louis, the first African-American hero, the amazing athlete, the amazing individual who many people don't understand how the things that he did have impacted the world we live in today.
Be Joe Louis. 3 simple words to empower the legacy of Joe Louis to inspire a new generation of champions. What does it take to become champions, leaders, future heroes? Joe Louis was the hero America needed then.
Black or white, it's amazing. And so Tonya, you have really embraced the legacy of Joe Louis as an ambassador for Joe Louis Bourbon and an advocate. And Marquis, you fell into this because you reviewed an early boxing event that was being brought back to prove that boxing could return COVID. And I think your review was something along the lines of, boxing was back, but who knew? Right? And so that's how we discovered you. And I think this is important for people to understand. The work that we have been doing together, I'm not on camera, I'm the behind the scenes. You guys are in front of the camera. The work that we have been doing to interview professional and amateur athletes to understand what it takes to be a champion, to understand their individual stories of sacrifice, of hardship, of success. It's probably been one of the most inspirational, I know for me, it's one of the most inspirational, powerful conversations that I've ever had the opportunity to be part of. Right?
I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. And that's why I stay committed to this mission and to Joe Louis's legacy.
We're all committed. And so I think we're at an opportunity to take this to the next level, because there are more stories to be told. There are more people to be inspired. This isn't about selling bourbon. This is about making a difference. And the Making of Champions is an opportunity for sponsors, companies to get involved, to be part of this, to help distribute it, to help support it. It's an opportunity for coaches, for gyms, for organizations that are committed to doing the good work. I mean, that's happening in a lot of cities. I never realized how extensive it was, that the work that's being done to bring youth out of hopelessness, to provide them opportunities for greatness.
And that's the one thing, Michael, that I think people don't understand, and that's what I think we do great here at the Making of Champions, is that everyone has a story to tell, and our job here pretty much is to explain to everyone what that story is and how they got to where they are currently. That's the one thing I do think that we do a lot here excellently. Like from amateur boxers who haven't made their pro fights yet to current world champions, we have talked to every single one of them, and we pretty much try to get to inside their heads to figure out what drives them and what motivates them, kind of in the spirit of Joe Louis.
And, you know, Marquis, one of the things that I am amazed every time we produce a show is your level of detail, your, I don't know what it is in your brain, the retention of facts and details, but you understand, you follow every fight and you understand the dynamic. And that's a really important part of this because there is that piece. But Tonya, what you bring to this is unbelievable in terms of an emotional, the human condition perspective. And I think I sometimes well up in tears hearing the answers to the questions that you ask.
I've always been so intrigued with the notion that so many of these boxers have been inspired at such a very, very young age. And I think that many of us don't realize the impact that we as adults have on young children. And for many of these fighters, it happened between the ages of like 4 to 9.
Mm-hmm. And the suffering that many of these individuals have had to endure.
Well, suffering oftentimes pairs along with that success, that one oftentimes doesn't see that success until they've gone through that pilgrimage and that suffering.
And usually with that suffering, Tonya, to piggyback you, is the fact that for a lot of these fighters, especially at that young age, the one way they want to get out of it, to change their situation, to change what they're doing in their lifetime, is to go the easy route. And that is the safest route they could think of. And that is pick up a boxing ring, get into a boxing gym, train to be a fighter, become a world champion. And that's what this show's all about.
Well, I'm hoping that the stories that we have shared, we will be releasing them as a major podcast for people to see all the archives of the stories. And our intention is to continue to tell new stories of inspiration, inspiring champions, ordinary people doing extraordinary things, right? That's what this is about. It's about giving hope, giving promise, giving credit to people who have achieved things for their families, for themselves, for their communities. And so moving forward, the Making of Champions is committed to continuing the Joe Louis legacy of really inspiring a new generation of champions. And we hope we can count on your support as followers, as participants, as supporters, as we release a whole new chapter for the Making of Champions as a vehicle for good. And Tonya and Marquis, we couldn't do it without you.
We most certainly couldn't do it without you, Michael. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. We have much more to say, much more to come. Stay tuned.
Well, let's say hello to senior writer, BigFightWeekend.com, Marquis John.